and so if you have any questions, please.
I wanted to ask about the talks in Saudi Arabia. It sounds like you made some progress on a Black Sea ceasefire. Could you update us on that? What happens now?
So we've made a lot of progress on two fronts, on both sections that we call them sections, but they're much more than that, Russia, Ukraine, and also the Middle East, and we'll see what happens. We're in deep discussions with Russia and Ukraine, and I would say it's going well, but it's a situation we should have never had to even think about, should have never happened. And on the Middle East, that's been going on for a lot of years, centuries and centuries. It just keeps going, and we are making a lot of progress. So that's all I can report. But some very, very big talks are going, and detailed talks are going on right now on both fronts.
Mr. President, you said that your national security advisor learned a lesson after a reporter...
Wait a minute, excuse me, I didn't pick you. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, the ceasefire agreement that was broken today allows for third-party countries to help implement the agreement. What does that look like, and who's going to be involved?
The ceasefire agreement?
Yes, the maritime ceasefire agreement between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, they're going to get together. Look, it's they agreed to something, and it got broken. There's tremendous animosity. There's a lot of hatred, as you can probably tell, and it allows for people to get together, mediate it, arbitrate it, and see if we can get it stopped, and I think it will. That'll get stopped.
What countries are you looking to work with, sir, to help implement and monitor that ceasefire?
We have other countries involved, and they're involved very strongly in the process, and that'll be resolved. That's actually, as bad as it is, that's the least of the problems. So we'll get that resolved, and we are being aided by other countries too. Yes, please. Yes, Brian.
Tomorrow, the subcommittee on DOGE is going to review funding for NPR and PBS. Now, every Republican president has always promised to take away this money that's going to these two public news outlets. If they're successful, I know Senator Kennedy has backed it, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congress has backed it. Would you be interested in defunding and taking away taxpayer dollars to NPR and PBS?
Well, I would love to do that. I think it's very unfair. It's been very biased, the whole group. I mean, a whole group of them. And frankly, there's plenty look at all the media you have right now. There's plenty of coverage. I was from a different age, and they spend more money than any other network of its type ever conceived. So the kind of money that's being wasted, and it's a very biased view, you know that better than anybody. And I'd be honored to see it end. We're well covered. Look at all the people that we have here today. We're well covered, and we don't need it, and it's a waste of money, especially. I don't even know what DOJ's recommendation is. I assume their recommendation is to close them up.
Well, after they hear all the testimony, I think they're going to make a decision relatively sooner than later.
Yeah.
But we'll see what that turns out.
I can't imagine that they wouldn't, because they have found so much waste, fraud, and abuse, hundreds of billions of dollars, and just waste, fraud, abuse. You heard yesterday some of the new things that were found. 22 billion just in environment. Billion. You know, if you had 22 million, Warren, it would be nice, but 22 billion put into environmental accounts. One was 2 billion into one account, Stacey Abrams, where they had $100 in the account, and just before I came in, they put $2 billion. And you guys are looking, so you mean 2 million or maybe 200,000? No, $2 billion were put in the account. What do you think of that, Mike? Do you think that's a straight deal? 2 billion?
Just write me the check, Mr. President. I'll take me to Israel.
It's a horrible thing, and we have so many of those things. So they've done an incredible job, and the country wants to hear it. I think DOGE is actually very popular because of what's happening. They're hearing about all of these scams and for big, big money. Tremendous amount. And when you add it up, just hundreds of billions of dollars being wasted, and much of it's fraud. You know, we talk about waste, and it is waste and abuse, but a lot of it's fraud
Can I
too.
follow up on something?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I just want to follow up on that. If Planned Parenthood is defunded, would you look into the harvesting of baby organs that they've done throughout the years, and maybe go after some criminal prosecution on that?
Well, I think you're talking about a subject that is a heated subject, and we'll look into it. We're going to look into everything, but that's certainly a subject that's been debated for a long time and we will look into it, yeah.
Mr. President,
Some senators have expressed hope that the White House will support a rescission package to codify some of the DOJ cuts into law. Where does the White House stand on that? And are you making progress?
The which
on that?
package?
A rescission package to codify some of the DOJ cuts into law.
You know what, it would be great. I think we're going to do that. I think they're going to do it. I think we're also going to be codifying a lot of the executive orders that we've done, which have been very popular. And we're looking at one, I will tell you right now, that I think perhaps will be controversial, but not with the people, and that's sanctuary cities. We're going to end sanctuary cities for some of these jurisdictions that aren't cooperating with law enforcement. They're guarding criminals. They're taking the rights away from the citizens of their state and their city. And we're going to be ending sanctuary cities if we find it necessary to do in certain major areas. And we may just end the entire thing altogether, because it's just a way of protecting criminals. And nobody else is benefited by that. And for some reason, Democrats want to keep and they want to shield criminals from being sent back to their countries or being sent to prison. And in the meantime, the crime rate has gone through the roof. Under Biden, it was through the roof. It's starting to come down, but we're taking a lot of people out of here. So we may be presenting you very shortly with a executive order ending sanctuary cities.
Mr. President, are you going to change any of the practices that your national security officials used after a reporter was inadvertently added to a group chat about attacks on Yemen?
Well, I think it's a question I've been asked now, and I've given a few answers, and they've all been the same. We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. We have had a very, very successful, numerous attacks on that area. These are people that shoot down ships, not only our ships, ships all over the world. They're shooting down right out of the water and damaging them badly, or they're going down. They're also shooting anything that happens to be flying in the area. We hit them very, very hard. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use. And I think I'll ask Mike. Mike is here. Do you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, Mr. President. You asked about lessons. I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room. But I'll tell you what, the world owes President Trump a favor. Under Biden, global shipping was shut down. Pinprick attacks, months between them, our destroyers being fired upon dozens of times. President Trump took decisive action with his national security team, took out the head missileer, knocked out missiles, knocked out headquarters, knocked out communication sites. And for once, as we hear, as you all hear from every one of our allies, thank God for American leadership again. Thank God for American strength. You're welcome. And look, we had a national security team that was coordinating these efforts. As Director Radcliffe testified today, his first day on the job, he was introduced to this app on his government systems at the CIA and at the State Department and otherwise. So, look, this journalist, Mr. President, wants the world talking about more hoaxes and this kind of nonsense rather than the freedom that you're enabling. And a key part of our sovereignty is open sea lanes and knocking the crap out of terrorists, which is exactly what your team and Pete Hegseth, a good friend and fellow veteran, is leading the charge on, and it's an honor.
We had a very, very successful, we had a very, very successful evening, and we've had numerous successful evenings and days in that area. The Houthis are absolutely on the run. The worst of them has been killed. This should have been done a long time ago by Biden, but Biden was an incompetent president. He couldn't do anything. He didn't know where he was going. He had no clue. This guy had no clue. This should have been done a long time ago. As they shoot missiles at ships, randomly shoot missiles at ships, and they make their own missiles. You know, this is not an incompetent group of people. They make their own missiles. They get the missiles also from Iran. It's an offshoot of Iran. Another offshoot, you have Hamas, you have Hezbollah, you have the Houthis, you got a lot of stuff going on with Iran. And we sent a letter to Iran. You're going to have to be speaking to us one way or the other pretty soon because we can't let this happen. But that's an app that a lot of people use. And somebody got on. I mean, happened to know the guy's a total sleazebag.
How did
The Atlantic,
get added to
the
that
Atlantic is a
chapter?
failed magazine. Does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it. This gives it a little bit of a shot. And I will tell you this: that they've made up more stories, and they're just a failing magazine. The public understands that. He's a very good man. That man is a very good man right there that you criticize so strongly. He's a very good man, and he will continue to do a good job. In addition to him, we had very good people in that meeting, and those people have done a very, very effective job, and you're going to see it. And it goes on, by the way. It's going to go on. And I think the Houthis wish that it didn't happen, but that's what it's all about. We have to create a safe country, a safe world, and that's what we're doing.
Do you worry that national security was put at risk, Mr. President?
Of senior officials using signal.
Do I plan to ban who?
The use of signal to communicate from senior officials.
Well, I don't know what this, I don't know anything about Signal. I wasn't involved in this, but I just heard about it. And I hear it's used by a lot of groups. It's used by the media a lot. It's used by a lot of the military, and I think successfully. But sometimes somebody can get onto those things. That's one of the prices you pay when you're not sitting in the situation room with no phones on, which is always the best, frankly. But the best is to be there. In fact, oftentimes I've been in fact, just last week I was in the situation room on something very important, and we had a couple of people hooked up by line, and I said, cancel the line. Sorry, fellas, what you do is we'll tell you all about the meeting, because I know people do get on those lines, whether it's Signal or anything else. Yeah.
So are you going to change any procedures as a result of this?
Well, I mean, look, we look at everything, and they've made a big deal out of this because we've had 2 perfect months. We are bringing in business. We have another one announced tomorrow, a big one, very big. Like in the history of our country, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I think probably a lot of people are saying they started by saying it was the greatest first month that a president has ever had, and I think that's true. And now they say it's the best second month, and they had to find something. And this certainly will look at this, but the main thing was nothing happened. The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person. The person that was on just happens to be a sleazebag, so maybe that's just coincidence. I don't know.
But you are going to conduct
Would
an
it be
investigation,
a problem if
Mr.
the
President.
Atlantic released all the text messages if they're not classified?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to ask the military about that because maybe you wouldn't want that. I don't know. I will say this: that from what I heard, the man that we're talking about, who's not somebody that I don't think most people have ever heard of, he left. He found it very boring, and he left early. He got off the line very early. So I can't speak to it other than that. So he's made up a lot of stories, and I think he's basically bad for the country. But it's a failing venture, very failing venture. They're very upset. And a thing like this is publicity for them. But I don't think we should allow people that are very good, like that man sitting right at the end of the table who's done a great job, we shouldn't allow them to be hurt by it.
Mr. President, can I follow up on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you saying you're okay with the continued use of Signal by administration officials?
No, that's not what I said. I said we'll look into it, but everybody else seems to be using it. It seems to be the #1 used device or app, whatever you want to call it, and we will certainly look. If it was up to me, everybody would be sitting in a room together. The room would have solid lead walls and a lead ceiling and a lead floor. But, life doesn't always let you do that. In the meantime, the attack itself that we were talking about and discussing has been an unbelievable success.
But you will conduct an investigation, is what you're saying into this.
We'll look into it, sure.
Mr. President,
I would look into it, sure. I want to look
Is that
into
the FBI? Or
anything
who's
like
doing
that. I would I would ask them, it's not really an FBI thing, it's really something having to do with security. Security, like, will somebody be able to break in? Are people able to break into conversations? And if that's true, we're going to have to find some other form of device. And I think that's something that we may have to do. Some people like Signal very much. Other people probably don't. But we'll look into it. I think, Michael, I've asked you to immediately study that and find out. If people are able to break into a system, now in this case it wasn't that this attack was going on and nobody found out anything. And again, the person that was on, as I understand it, he left very early because he didn't find it very exciting. But I think it's something you should look into.
Yes, sir, we are. We have our technical experts looking at it. We have our legal teams looking at it. And of course, we're going to keep everything as secure as possible. No one in your national security team would ever put anyone in danger. And as you've said, and we've repeatedly said, the attack was phenomenal and it's ongoing. But the media wants to talk about everything else except for the hostages you're getting out of the Middle East, Iran on its back foot, sea lanes getting reopened, peace in Europe. As we just saw today with a Black Sea ceasefire, we were just on with Steve Witkoff, myself, our team in Saudi Arabia. They want to talk about all this other stuff except for your amazing successes and the successes of your team.
One of the other things, and sometimes you have to move very quickly, and there are other devices that are very good, but they are very, very cumbersome, and you're not able to use them and from a practical standpoint. So all we can do is find out the best we have with modern technology. They'll probably get better over the years. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, on the Black Sea, so the Kremlin has said that there were several conditions that would need to be met for this agreement to happen. This includes sanction relief for banks and some companies. Did the U.S. agree to all of those conditions that they laid out?
They will be looking at them, and we're thinking about all of them right now. There are about 5 or 6 conditions. We're looking at all of them.
The White House has said that it's looking into how journalists got added to that Signal chat. Is it possible that there could be a firing of even a lower mid-level official once that person is identified?
About what?
About the Signal chat that we've been discussing.
We've pretty much looked into it. It's pretty simple, to be honest. It's not. It's just something that can happen. It can happen. You can even prepare for it. It can happen. Sometimes people are hooked in and you don't know they're hooked in. They're hooked into your line and they don't even mean bad by it. But it's not a perfect technology. There is no perfect technology. The really good ones are very cumbersome, very hard to access. And I think we're going to look at, we always want to use the best technology. This was the best technology for the moment. But again, it wasn't classified, so they probably viewed it as being something that wasn't that important. And it obviously, with the attack being, I mean, I don't know if it's been read out to you yet, but that attack was a tremendous success for the U.S., a tremendous success.
Who said the information
ahead,
was
please.
not classified?
Do you think that Mike Waltz made a mistake, and does he need to apologize?
No, I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again, at least not in the very near future. What do you think?
That's sir. I agree with you. Let's get everybody in the room whenever possible.
A lot of times you find out defects by exactly things like that, but I don't think it's something we're looking forward to using again. We may be forced to use it. You may be in a situation where you need speed as opposed to gross safety, and you may be forced to use it, but generally speaking, I think we probably won't be using it very much.
The Secretary of Defense, on that chain, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and J.D. Vance, the Vice President, said that the Europeans were freeloading. Do you agree with that assessment?
Do you really want me to answer?
Yes,
Yeah, I think they've been freeloading. The European Union's been absolutely terrible to us on trade, terrible. And as you know, NATO, I got them to pay hundreds of billions of dollars. They were way behind. And if you look if you look at Ukraine, so we're in for $350 billion because of Biden. Should have never happened, this war. All these dead people should not be dead. All these broken cities that are demolished down to the ground, those gorgeous towers, the most beautiful in the world, the most beautiful spires in the world. The spires in Ukraine were said to be the most beautiful of all. Just about every one of them is lying on its side in a million pieces. It's so sad to see what's happened to a heritage. No, I think that when they say the European Union and you could say NATO also. Look, NATO, and I don't blame NATO for this. I don't blame Europe for this. I blame Biden for the fact that he didn't make them equalize. And to this day, I said to him, you got to catch up, you got to equalize. But why are they in for $100 billion and we're in for possibly $350 billion? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And you could say more important for them because we have an ocean in between. So, you know, it's one of those things. You'll be seeing Liberation Day. I call it Liberation Day in America. You're going to be seeing on April 2nd. Didn't want to do it on April 1st for the obvious reason, April 2nd. But you'll be seeing tariffs. And I think I've been very fair. I have them set. But I think I've been very fair to countries that have really abused us economically for many, many decades.
Mr. President, who told you that information was not classified?
Another question.
Which of your national
Please,
security
go ahead.
advisors
Just
told you
following
that?
up on your comments on the economy, there is reporting that consumer confidence fell for the fourth straight month. What is your message to Americans who are concerned about?
Well, I know
terrorism?
this, that for the first time in like 50 years, right track, wrong track, we're on the right track. And I think people see that. And if you look at prices, prices are way down. You know, when I first came here, the first time I met with you people officially, they were screaming at me about eggs. I said, I've been here for a week and I'm being yelled at about eggs. Egg prices have come down 45, 50% in the last week and a half. And our Secretary of Agriculture has done a great job, as you know, Brooke. She's done a fantastic job, and others working with her have done a great job. But we brought eggs down at a level that nobody thought we could get at. I inherited that situation, and I inherited a grocery situation. The groceries went way up, an old-fashioned word, but it's a very descriptive word. Groceries have gone through the roof. And I used to campaign on it. I used to say, we're going to get groceries down, and we have got it down. I watched a certain newscast over the weekend, and a congressman, Democrat congressman, said, well, Trump's done a lot, I agree. He's been great on the border, he's been great on the military, but you know he hasn't brought prices down. That's false. Gasoline's way down. Eggs are way down. Groceries are down, very substantially, but down. Almost everything's down. Now, I'd like to see interest rates come down a little bit, and you're going to see billions of dollars, even trillions of dollars coming into our country very soon in the form of tariffs, because we were abused by presidents that, frankly, in all fairness, it wasn't their expertise, but they had no idea what they were doing.
Mr. President, you say tariffs will create more jobs here in America.
Oh,
So
yeah, sure. It's
which
going to
states-
agree.
which
It'll
states
it'll create a lot of money and more jobs. But if you look, so in the last, these gentlemen would know about it, and ladies, because some of the ladies are great businessmen in this room that are becoming ambassadors. Great, really great, top of the line. When you look at the number of companies that have said, like we're close to, I would say close to $4 trillion. We never had numbers like that. The number one chip maker in the world from Taiwan coming in with $200 billion. We have Apple. Look at Apple. $500 billion. $500 billion. They're going to build plants all over the United States. They were all being built in China. You have many, many companies, and maybe above all, you have the car companies coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. We have Honda is opening up one of the biggest plants in the world in Indiana, and many car companies are coming in. We have AI. We're leading China by a lot in AI, and we're going to keep it that way because we've made it very good for them, and we're going to protect them once they're here. We'll protect them through taxes, through incentives, and also through tariffs. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we need Congress to pass the largest tax cuts, and we are going to get that done. And we're joined today by so many people that are just so great. And we are going to have a little bit of a celebration after this is finished in one of the outer rooms. They have some stuff for the women. Much better. We did this for men. And, you know, it's very unexciting having a day for men. I stood up here. It was like I reduced the speech from 10 pages to about 2 paragraphs. It was boring. It was boring as hell to tell you. Throughout our history, strong, tough, visionary women have defended our flag, strengthened our communities, explored new frontiers, and expanded the American dream for all of our children and all of our people. Now, patriotic American women like those in this room are helping lead our nation into the golden age of America. And that's what we're calling it. This is the golden age of America. We want to do things that nobody thought were possible. You know, had I done it the more traditional way, which I actually did, but we won't talk about that. But had it been the, 4 + 4 as opposed to floor 4, let's see how bad they do, and then we get another 4 at numbers too big to rig, we call it. We have to go out too big to rig. They tried, but it was too big to rig. Had we done it that way, it would have been nearly as important or nearly as historic. It's much more historic. It's a much more important presidency. And frankly, because of how bad they were, we're able to do things that we could have never done if it were traditional. I don't think, Marjorie, we would have ever been able to have done the things we are doing now. You see what we're doing with the colleges, and they're all bending and saying, sir, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And they are, nobody can believe it, including law firms that have been so horrible, law firms that nobody would believe, and they're just saying, where do I sign? Where do I sign? Nobody can believe it, and there's more coming. But we really are in the golden age of America, and I think you're going to see it more and more as we go along. Together, we're beginning our country's greatest era, and we're building a future that will be stronger, safer, healthier, and happier than ever before. And you're really going to be the leaders. I think you're going to be the dominant leaders, and you have a lot of them in this room politically, but just the fact that you're here and the fact that you're with us is so important. There's nothing like strong, beautiful, wonderful women. You have the heart, you have the whole spirit. You're amazing people, and it's an honor to be with you, and we're going to work together, and we're going to make this the greatest age in the history of our country. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
So Mr. President, on tariffs. Can I ask about tariffs, Mr. President? On the car tariffs, how do you ensure that a car coming into the country is fully built? Could an automaker in Germany say, leave the tires off a car?
Yeah, we're going to have very strong policing, and it's pretty easy to do. If parts are made in America and a car isn't, those parts are not going to be taxed or tariffed. And we'll have very strong policing as far as that's concerned. For the most part, I think it's going to lead cars to be made in one location. Right now, a car would be made here, sent to Canada, sent to Mexico, sent all over the place. It's ridiculous. So this is a very simple system. And the beauty of the 25, it's one number. It's not up or down depending on the cost of the car. It's one number. And that number is going to be used to reduce debt greatly in the United States and to build things, reduce taxes. I mean, basically, I view it as reducing taxes and also reducing debt. And within a fairly short period of time, I think we're going to have a balance sheet that's going to be outstanding. Yeah.
How do you assure Americans then that this will not cause a long-term increase in prices?
Well, look, I think we're going to have a market the likes of which nobody's ever seen before, not in this country. We had the best market ever in my first term. It was the strongest market ever, the best economy ever. And I think this blows it away. But this is something that people have wanted to do, presidents have wanted to do for a long time. A lot of them didn't understand it. It wasn't a priority for them. But foreign countries understood it very well. And they've really ripped us off at levels that nobody's seen before. But that's not going to happen.
Mr. President, is this for today or on April 2nd, the auto tariffs?
Say it?
Do these auto tariffs go into effect today or on April 2nd?
They go into effect on April 2nd. We're signing today. It goes into effect April 2nd. We start collecting on April 3rd.
Is there any more sectoral tariffs that are coming in on April 2nd?
What does that mean?
Any more tariffs on any other sectors on April 2nd, for example, chips or pharmaceuticals?
Not then, but we will be putting a tariff on lumber. We, as you know, have a tariff already on steel and on aluminum of 25%, and we're taking in tremendous amounts of dollars. More importantly, our steel factories and aluminum factories are roaring. They're starting to roar. They're building new ones. I just heard from Nucor, which is a big company, a very big steel company, and they're building a massive plant for steel that they wouldn't build without this. So you're going to see things that are going to be actually amazing. And I think you already have. We've had some news conferences where I can't have enough. They want to do news conferences where they announce they're going to spend $20, $30, $40 billion. But Apple, as an example, is spending $500 billion. Okay.
On the Signal chat, Senator Roger Wicker.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead.
Reciprocal tariffs next week. Will those be immediately effective April 2nd on all countries, or will you focus on the worst offenders?
No, we're going to make it all countries, and we're going to make it very lenient. I think people are going to be very surprised. It'll be, in many cases, less than the tariff that they've been charging us for decades. So I think people are going to be very, very surprised.
Why is that?
I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. I don't know. I think we're trying to keep it somewhat conservative.
And on these auto tariffs, we saw obviously the NASDAQ 100 go down 2% at close, S&P 500 down 1%. What are you concerned about that market reaction?
Today?
Yes, sir.
I didn't say that. I want to see the jobs. I want to see that'll all take care of itself. That could take care of itself in 1 day, 2 days, or 1 week.
Are there any conditions under which you'd remove these auto tariffs, sir, or is this permanent for the rest of your term in office?
Oh, this is permanent. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Are you on the auto tariffs? Did Elon Musk advise you at all on these auto tariffs?
No, because he may have a conflict, so we don't talk. I've never talked to him. Elon's amazing. He's never asked me for a favor in business whatsoever. I'm actually a little surprised by it. I might do it. I might not do it. I do what's right, and he'd want me to do what's right. No, he's a patriot. He has never, these are big deals we're talking about. This is probably nothing like this, and I've never had Elon come and say, would you do me a favor with the mandate or the electric mandate or anything. He's never asked me for anything.
Sir, also, what's your response to Republican lawmakers who have said today that your administration should take more accountability and not downplay what's happened with Signal that we've seen in these messages today?
Well, I don't know about downplaying. The press upplays it. I think it's all a witch hunt, that's all. I think it's a witch hunt. I wasn't involved with it. I wasn't there, but I can tell you the result is unbelievable because the Houthis are looking to do something. They want to know, how do we stop? Can we have peace? The Houthis want peace because they're getting the hell knocked out of them. It's been very, very strong. The Houthis are dying for peace. They don't want this. And they're bad. Look, they were knocking ships out of the ocean. We had in the Suez Canal, they only have about 20% of the ships going through. They have to go through a different way, which takes weeks of travel, and that really affects commerce. But the Houthis have been hit hard, and they want to negotiate peace. But I don't think they're quite.
Classified was shared?
Say it.
Do you still believe nothing classified was shared?
Well, that's what I've heard. I don't know. I'm not sure. You'll have to ask the various people involved. I really don't know. I can only tell you this. You don't want to talk about it. The Houthis have been horrible to the world. What they've done, killed a lot of people, and knocked down a lot of ships and planes and anything else. It's not just the ships. And they have been hit. They have been hit harder than they've ever been hit. And they want us to stop so badly. And they've got to stop. They've got to say no mas. But I can only say that the attacks, it's attacks every day, every night. It's not just the one. You're talking about one. The attacks have been very successful, even beyond our wildest expectations. We've hit them very hard, very successfully. And we're going to do it for a long time. We're going to keep it going for a long time.
Senate Republicans have said that they have formally asked the administration for an Inspector General report on the Signal issue. Will you agree to that?
It doesn't bother me. I don't know. I want to find if there's any mistake or if Signal doesn't work. It could be that Signal is not very good. It's a company. Maybe it's not very good. I think we'd rather know about it now. There was no harm done because the attack was unbelievably successful that night, and it has been unbelievably successful every single night for the last 4 or 5 nights. So,
And you're responding.
and that's the thing that you should be talking about. This is something that should have been done by sleepy Joe Biden, but he was asleep at the wheel, other than when it came to stealing money, of course. Joe Biden should have done this attack on Yemen, which is basically a certain group within Yemen, the Houthis, and this should have been done by Joe Biden, and it wasn't. And that's caused this world a lot of damage and a lot of problems.
He's responsible, but he's also overseeing the investigation to find out what went wrong. Maybe
Who's responsible?
Mike Waltz says that he's responsible.
Well, yeah, Mike Waltz, I guess he claimed responsibility, I would imagine. Had nothing to do with anyone else. It was Mike, I guess. I don't know. I was told it was Mike. But again, the attacks were unbelievably successul, and that's ultimately what you should be talking about, I think. No, Mike he took responsibility for it. Say it?
Should Secretary Hegseth consider his position over the signal?
Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this. Hegseth. How do you bring Hegseth into it? He had nothing to do. Look, it's all a witch hunt. Here we are talking about some of the greatest business deals ever made. The greatest companies in the world are moving into the United States, and you want to ask about whether or not Signal works. I don't know that Signal works. I think Signal could be defective, to be honest with you. And I think that's what we have to, because you use Signal, and we use Signal, and everybody uses Signal, but it could be a defective platform, and we're going to have to find that out.
Have you been briefed about soldiers in Lithuania?
Say it?
Have you been briefed about the soldiers in Lithuania who are missing?
No, I haven't.
Mr. President, have you spoken, sir, with the big 3 automakers about these tariffs? What was their reaction?
I have.
What was their reaction?
It depends on whether or not they have factories here. I can tell you, if they have factories here, they're thrilled. If you don't have factories here, they're going to have to get going and build them, because otherwise they have to pay tariffs. It's very simple. And most of those have pretty big factories here, like General Motors has big factories here. They're going to move their parts divisions back to the United States, because some of them were made in Canada and some of them were made in Mexico and other places. They'll be moving their parts division back to the United States in factories where they may be at 60% capacity, so they don't even really have to build too much of a factory. But, generally speaking, if they have factories here, plants here, where they make their cars and equipment, but they make their cars here, they are thrilled. Same thing with the steel industry. Steel industry is now paying a 25% tariff, as you know, I put it on last week, and the business is roaring in the United States. And we can't, because of military, we can't lose the steel industry. If I didn't put the initial tariffs on steel in my first term, you wouldn't be able to have a military, because we wouldn't have every steel company would be bankrupt in the United States, and every plant would be closed. But now they're booming, and putting this tariff on, this additional tariff for steel and aluminum, it's making them thrive, and it's already happened.
Mr. President, you have a deadline for the TikTok sale. Will you extend that deadline if you don't have a deal? Do you support Oracle?
Well, we will have a form of a deal. TikTok is very popular, very successful, very good. We're going to have a form of a deal, but if it's not finished, it's not a big deal. We'll just extend it. I have the right to have the deal and to extend it if I want. So we'll see whether or not we have a deal. We have a lot of interest in TikTok.
Is there a way for a U.S. company to operate it and ByteDance to still have a share of the algorithm?
Well, there are numerous ways you can buy TikTok, and we will find the one that's best for the country, for our country. I'm worried about our country more than anything else with respect to TikTok. And China is going to have to play a role in that, possibly, in the form of an approval, maybe. And I think they'll do that. Maybe I'll give them a little reduction in tariffs or something to get it done, because every point in tariff is worth more money than TikTok, if you think. Every point. Tariff is a much bigger world, and TikTok is big, but every point in tariffs is worth more than TikTok. So in order to get China to do, maybe I'd give them a reduction in tariffs, as an example. Sounds like something I'd do.
Do you think tariffs are going to be good for Tesla, sir?
Good for who?
Tesla, which makes it
well, he is a fantastic Tesla. Will tariffs be good? I think they may, it could be a net neutral, or they may be good. He has a big plant in Texas. He has a big plant in California. And anybody that has plants in the United States, it's going to be good for, in my opinion.
Mr. President, the European Union has ruled against education control to the states. How would you handle it if a state like California were to put in place education policy?
You know, I haven't seen a mask in so long. You're wearing a mask. So nice of you. I haven't seen anybody wearing a mask in a long time. It's good. You feel more comfortable, right? Good. That's good. So go ahead.
You said you want to return education control to the states. How would you handle it if a state like California were to put in place education policies you disagree with?
Well, I think that California is going to be tougher because they're doing badly on everything they do. You know, everything they touch turns bad. So a place like California would be tougher for education. But what I would see with California is you'd have a Los Angeles department, and you'd have Riverside. You'd go to various places. And I think you'd have some great areas in California, and then you'd have some, like everything else, that doesn't work so well. But ultimately, I think it would be very successful. I think in New York, as an example, you'd go to Long Island, Westchester, you may have Nassau County, Queens County. You'd break it up in certain ways so they'd have maybe... Thank you very much. Do you have any questions, please?
Mr. President, Canada's Prime Minister says that they will be implementing retaliatory tariffs. You said if that were to happen, that you would be responding with large-scale tariffs. Will you be following through with that promise?
Well, absolutely, but we had a very good conversation. Mark called me today at 10 o'clock. We put out a statement. We had a very, very good talk. He's going through an election now, and we'll see what happens, but we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, And, that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. Some we probably won't. It won't be so pleasant, but I think most countries are agreeing with me. They actually, many of them have actually apologized. They said, look, we have taken advantage. And I don't blame them as much as I blame the people that stood, in this case I can say the men, because so far they've been all men, haven't they? But the men that sat right there and behind the Resolute desk, mostly the Resolute desk, I don't know if you know, you have a choice of 7 desks. The Resolute is the one I like, but some chose other ones. But they sat right behind a desk right in this location, and they let our country be hurt very badly, but I didn't do that. But we had a very good talk, the Prime Minister and myself, and I think things are going to work out very well between Canada and the United States. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, how is the talks with India on tariff going on, and what is the expectations from India? How much do you want them?
Well, as you know, Prime Minister Modi was here just recently, and we've always been very good friends. India is one of the highest tariffing nations in the world. You know that. I know. Thank you for shaking your head, but it's brutal. It's brutal. They're very smart, and he's a very smart man and a great friend of mine, actually. And we had very good talks. I think it's going to work out very well between India and our country. Very, very well. And I want to say you have a great Prime Minister.
Mr. President, there's been a very serious earthquake in Burma, Myanmar today, with up to several hundred killed.
Yeah.
The military regime there has asked for help from anybody.
Yeah, we're going to be helping. We've already alerted the people. Yeah, it's terrible what's happened. It's helping. We've already spoken with the country. Okay, please.
Mr. President, yesterday you asked Representative Stefanik to stay in her seat. Can you explain your reason for that? Did it have anything to do with the tight polling in the Florida district that former Representative Waltz held?
Well, I think we're doing, I think we had, as you know, we have a few elections going on, and she is phenomenal, number one. She is a friend of mine, and she was going to go to the United Nations, and I said, look, there's a lot of room for doing that or something else, but she's very popular in her district, and I didn't want to take a chance. I don't even know who else is running. I assume somebody else would have been running, but if she runs, she can't be, you never want to say can't be beaten, but I think can't be beaten. She's very, very well-liked and very smart. And I said, Lise, would you do me a favor? We cannot take a chance. We have a slim margin. We don't want to take any chances. We don't want to experiment. And she polls like I do. I won her district, as you know, by a lot of points. And she also does very well there. When it comes to Florida, you have 2 races, and they seem to be good. It's a Trump plus 32 area. The one thing is they're spending like $12 million, and our candidate doesn't have that kind of money, spending much less than that, like maybe 1/12, about $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million. So the airwaves are blanketed, and you never know what happens in a case like that. I won it by 32 points, and it's very, very strong. It used to be Democrat, but when I came along, they liked me for whatever reason. You'll have to explain that, but they liked me. We're way up. But you don't know what happened. Second district, who seems to be in pretty good shape, but likewise, he's being outspent about 5-1. So we don't want to take any chances. So I went to Elise and I said, Elise, do you mind? Very highly rated person, you know, she was a real leader. And she will be again. I spoke with Mike Johnson. They're going to put her in a high leadership position. But will you mind staying in Congress? Because we don't want to take any chances. And it's as simple as that. It's basic politics. It's politics 101. She's very popular. She's going to win. And somebody else will probably win, too, because we did very well there. I did very well there. But the word probably is no good. So I really appreciate her doing it. She's doing me a big favor when she does it, because she was all set to go to the United Nations, and she would have dealt with Putin and Zelensky and everybody else, and she would have been very effective. But we really don't want to take any chances because it is tight.
Mr. President,
go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. You and your team apprehended a top 3 leader in the violent gang MS-13 yesterday, just 30 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. What has made you and your team so effective in finding, locating, apprehending, and deporting these violent, illegal migrants?
I love this guy. I wish more people would ask questions like that. But thank you. That's very nice. I appreciate it. And they happen. All you're doing is being fair with you when you ask a question in that way. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and all of the rest of law enforcement, and I think we have to include ICE and Border Patrol, you know, Paul of Border Patrol, the whole group from Border Patrol. They're so incredible, and it's, you know, dangerous stuff, hard stuff, and it's really an unforced error, because these people were allowed into this country. They shouldn't have been in this country. They would have never been in this country. We're getting rid of some of the worst criminals in the world. They came out of jails and mental institutions from all over the world. But Pam and the whole group, and Kash, who's here, and it's so good to have him. I see him all over. He's working 24 hours a day, but the job they've done is incredible. And they caught one of the worst criminals in the world, I guess, in terms of evilness. You don't get any worse than the MS-13 guys and the Tren de Aragua guys. It's, you could flip a coin. It's a rough group. And, you know, the big thing is they have to be able to do their job. I know I was watching it on television like you, and I saw the home that he lived in a good area, but boy, they had a lot of weaponry in there, right? Highly sophisticated, really brutal stuff. So I appreciate the question, and I just want to thank Kash and Pam and the whole group for doing a fantastic, and the local law enforcement who's been so terrific, even first responders. So I want to thank everybody, and thank you very much.
Mr. President, I want to say, first of all, happy Women's Month. You do so much for women by, first of all, keeping men out of women's sports, and you platform so many.
That was an easy one. That was crazy.
You platform so many great women, like your Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. You also have Caroline Levitt doing a great job as press secretary. Now Alina will be joining as well. Since Democrats seem to struggle answering this question, I wanted to ask you, what is a woman, and why is it important that we understand the difference between men and women?
Well, it's sort of easy to answer for me, because a woman is somebody that can have a baby under certain circumstances. She has a quality. A woman is a person who's much smarter than a man, I've always found. A woman is a person that doesn't give a man even a chance of success. And a woman's a person that in many cases has been treated very badly, because I think that what happens with this crazy issue of men being able to play in women's sports is just ridiculous and very unfair to women and very demeaning to women. And that's got to be about a 94%. I read today it was a 94% issue. And I watched the other day, a congressman, a Democrat congressman, fighting for the fact that men should be allowed to compete essentially in women's sports. And I say, I hope they keep that going because they'll never win another election. That's a big deal. But women are basically incredible people, do so much for our country, and we love our women, and we're going to take care of our women. Yeah.
Mr. President, what was your reason for pardoning Trevor Milton?
Highly recommended by many people that was taken advantage of. He did a business deal like in Utah, as I have it, and I think he was exonerated, and then they brought him into New York. We had a rough road. I mean, he was exonerated. It was a big celebration. Again, I don't know him, but I was. They say it was very unfair, and they say the thing that he did wrong was he was one of the first people that supported a gentleman named Donald Trump for president. He supported Trump. He liked Trump. I didn't know him, but he liked him. It was in Utah, and they went after him. They went after his family. They went after his businesses. And he was, I believe, exonerated, and then they went after him again, and they brought him this time into Manhattan, and he had nothing to do with Manhattan. And they got him, and I said, that's unfair. There are many people like that. They support Trump, and they went after him. You don't realize this is a vicious group of people that were in this office before us. This is a vicious group. They're violent. What they were doing to people, and you could go story after hundreds and even thousands of stories, and they went after this man. And when I heard about it, I said, nope, not going to happen. They destroyed 5 years of his life. He fought for 5 years of his life, and he did nothing wrong. And he's a good person. And basically, I had these fantastic recommendations about him from people that you know very well, all top-of-the-line people. They thought it was a horrible thing. There are many such cases, by the way, many such cases.
Should Americans buy cars now if they want to avoid
Please go
higher
ahead.
prices?
Thank you, Mr. President. Have you spoken with Vladimir Putin about buying weapons from Iran and from North Korea?
Not about specifically that, no, I haven't.
Well, that seems to be an issue that you want to make important is...
Well, I'm making all issues important. You got a lot of important issues. You also have the children issue that's important. You know, a lot of children are living in Russia right now. That's a horrible situation that would have never taken place if I was president, and the country is being decimated. But, you know, they're losing 2,500 on average young men, mostly men, almost in all cases men, actually, but young men every single week, 2,500, and they're not from our country. They're from Ukraine and they're from Russia, but it's human lives, and if we can get it stopped, and I think we're making progress. But there's a lot of ill will between the parties.
Should Americans buy cars now if they want to avoid higher prices? And then just to follow
No, I don't think so. I think you're going to have a country that's going to boom. I just spoke to Tim Cook of Apple. He's investing $500 billion in the United States, which he would have never, he told me, I would never have done it if you lost the election, and I would have never done it if there wasn't a tariff system that is an incentive for people to come. And remember, there are no tariffs. All you have to do is do your work right here. If you have your company here, if you build your product, make your car, or whatever it is you're making, no tariffs. And we're going to have, I think, Scott, I would say we're close to $4 trillion, even going close to $5 trillion. Now, we haven't had that for years. If you add up years, they haven't invested like that. And here we are in 2 months. We think we're up to close to $5 trillion of investment. They're going to build car plants. They're already building. Many of them have already started. And if you build a car in the United States, and one thing that I just spoke with John Thune about, I just spoke to Mike Johnson about, Speaker, we're going to do something that has never been done in this country before. I'm very proud to say it was my idea. And so sometimes a simple idea, they say, how'd you think of that one? It's so simple, it was never done. If you buy a car in the United States that's made in the United States, if it's manufactured here, when you borrow money, if you borrow money, you have interest payments, we're going to let you deduct the interest payment for income tax reasons. And I think that's going to more than pay for itself. I think people are going to be, they've never had a deduction. You know, deductions are supposed to be for like rich people, and it's unfair to have that. But rich people are I think I know more about deductions than any human being on earth. But, you know, the truth is that people that are middle-income people that buy a car and actually have to borrow money, they're going to now get an interest deduction on their car if it's made in the United States. If it's made someplace else, that won't take place. But car companies, as you know, are already expanding and building new plants. They've already started. And I think you're going to see numbers. Howard, you're seeing it, and Scott, you're seeing it. You're going to see numbers the likes of which you've never seen before. Yeah, please go ahead.
The vice president is in Greenland right now. Do you have plans to expand U.S. military presence in Greenland? Is that
We get along very well with Greenland. We get along very well with Denmark. We've always had a good relationship. Denmark does a lot of business in the United States. We don't do so much there, but they do a lot of business in the United States. And I think they want to see, I think everybody wants to see that work out. We need Greenland, very importantly, for international security. We have to have Greenland. It's not a question of, do you think we can do without it? We can't. If you look at Greenland right now, if you look at the waterways, you have Chinese and Russian ships all over the place. And we're not going to be able to do that. We're not relying on Denmark or anybody else to take care of that situation. And we're not talking about peace for the United States. We're talking about world peace. We're talking about international security. And right now, you look at it, you have warships all over the place going through right along Greenland. We're not going to let that happen. We cannot let that happen. Or if it's going to happen, we have to be protective of our country. And more important, really protection not only of our country, of the world. So Greenland is very important. In modern-day weaponry makes Greenland 100 years ago, less so. But also,
would you like to visit Greenland?
If you notice, also some of those, you could call them roadways, okay? They're water roadways. But some of those areas are opening up, and they're opening up icebreakers out there. They're opening them, and by just nature, they're opening up, and they're headed right into China, right into Russia. And we have no choice. The answer is he's there with his wonderful wife, Usha. They're there right now. They landed a couple of hours ago, and they will represent us well. But Greenland's very important for the peace of the world, not us, the peace of the entire world. And I think Denmark understands it. I think the European Union understands it. And if they don't, we're going to have to explain it to them.
Would you like to visit Greenland?
Iranian drones are attacking Ukraine every day.
Let's say
Iranian drones are attacking and killing Ukrainians every day. Why aren't you doing something about that?
Well, we're going to see what happens with that. I'm getting reports on that, and we're looking at a report. You're right. They make a lot of drones. Iran makes a lot of drones. They make very effective drones, too. They do very effectively at some things, but Iran is very high on my list of things to watch. And as you probably know, I sent them a letter just recently, and I said, you're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And we're going to either have to talk and talk it out, or very bad things are going to happen to Iran. And I don't want that to happen. My big preference, and I don't say this through strength or weakness, my big preference is we work it out with Iran. But if we don't work it out, bad things are going to happen to Iran. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Guys, let's go. Come on, guys.
We're in the process of landing. I didn't realize it's quite late. Is everything good?
Yes, sir.
We have a lot of good things happening in our country. I hope you're enjoying the flight. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. President. Canada, sir, and after the call, you seem to be much more positive about Canada than you've been in the past.
No, I just think, I've always loved Canada, and we had a very good conversation with the Prime Minister. They've got an election going on, so we're going to meet after the election.
On the pharma tariffs, Mr. President, you've been talking about the pharma tariffs and what to expect there. Are you going to exempt life-saving medications, or what can we expect there?
Well, we'll be announcing it soon, but we have to bring pharmaceuticals, drugs and pharmaceuticals, back into our country.
And what's the rate you're looking at? 15%, 25%?
We're looking at a certain number that will be enough to get the drugs and the pharmaceutical companies bringing their product into our country.
And what will China do?
I never want to have to rely on other countries for that.
And what will China
like
do?
we did at COVID.
Sir, Mr. President, on the car tariffs and just the reciprocal tariffs, a lot of countries are making gestures, including Britain, which is talked about reducing digital services. They want to make deals.
They do.
Are you in a mode, or
Well, it's possible if we can get something for the deal. but we've been taken advantage of for 40 years, maybe more, and it's just not going to happen anymore. But yeah, I'm certainly open to if we can do something where we get something for it.
Mr. President, do you plan to?
Would that happen before the tariffs are announced?
No, probably later.
Probably.
Mr. President, do you?
It's a process. Do it probably later. We're landing right now.
Mr. President, do you plan to take Greenland by force?
Does today's inflation report impact?
We're landing right now. I don't want to see anybody get hurt.
We don't want to see you get hurt.
Have a good time.
Thank
Good
you,
luck,
Mr.
everybody.
President.
Good luck. Sit
Thank
down.
you.